Phones. Phones are pretty cool. Some unique, some less than unique, but nonetheless, they are really amazing little devices that we actually take for granted nowadays. We can do everything from our phones. You know, we can watch movies, order our shopping, book holidays, and even use a calculator, just like our teachers said we'd never be able to do.
Now listen here, Sonny Jim. You won't always have a
Fuck just fell over.
Now listen here, Sonny Jim. You won't always have a calculator in your pocket.
These things are amazing, and the technology gets better every single year. You know, whilst progress has plateaued a fair bit as we're starting to reach the limits that silicon has, we still get steady increases. You know, not as much as we used to, mind you, but there are still improvements. Mainly under the hood, though. That was until Samsung and Motorola decided to come out with something pretty interesting in the year of 2029. The fuck am I? That was until Motorola and Samsung decided to come out with something pretty unique back in 2019, paving the way for future mobile technology as we know it. I'm mainly going to be talking about the Motorola one here, and you'll see why in a minute. In 2019, Motorola announced the Motorola Razr. No, not that Motorola Razr. This one. This was the first major attempt at reinventing the flip phone in a modern way. Instead of having one half of the phone as a keyboard or numpad and the second half being the screen, they sort of tried to integrate the touchscreen technology we have now into a foldable device by making the entire screen fold. It was absolutely genius in theory. You know, the idea of bendable glass that would allow us to compress these giant slabs of metal into a smaller, easier to carry package seemed otherworldly.
Even though this was, a recycled idea from 15 years ago, but, we won't talk about that.
This phone pretty much absolutely sucked, exactly like the Samsung Z Flip 1. It was fine in concept and was a good proof of said concept, but as an actual daily driver, these phones had so many caveats over the regular slab-based counterparts from each company that it was just not worth it unless you were absolutely desperate to be an early adopter of the technology and say, hey, look at me, I have the new flip phone, get fucked you poor peasants. The screen wasn't even glass, as everybody expected, but instead consisted of this very fragile sort of plastic glass compound that was horrible to touch and broke the bloody phone after a low number of flips. Considering that was the whole gimmick of the flip, having the screen get obliterated whenever you use the primary function of the phone was not exactly the greatest, especially when you were forking out a good sort of 1,300 quid for one of these bad boys. This isn't to say that flip phones are still bad. Sure, they've had some issues that the regular slab phones don't have, but the technology has come a long way in the past 6 or 7 years.
Yes, everybody, get it? I said 6, 7. Everyone laugh!
But in all seriousness, it is actually quite amazing how good the latest generation foldable and flippable phones are compared to the first generation ones, especially when such little time has passed in the grand scheme of things. It makes sense, however, as the internal hardware, like the chipset, becomes less of a focus due to the diminishing returns we get on improvements year after year. Companies like Samsung, Motorola, Honor, Oppo, and others are forced to sort of innovate in other areas to keep customers like my dumbass self coming back for more. I'm not the most qualified on this topic, but I know someone that had a Flip 1, so I know it fairly well from their experience. I also had a Flip 3 back in 2021 when that came out, so I know how rough that experience was. And now I have another phone. That being this little bastard, which happens to be broken. You may be thinking, well, I mean, it looks alright, and that is a fair assumption, but, look at that big ass mark right there, that little one right there. Also, there's some minor cracking around the crease. Yeah, it's not great. It looks a bit worse when I actually turn the phone on, but we'll get to that later. Before we turn it on, however, I just want to talk about what this is and why I initially purchased it last year. This is the Motorola Razr 6G Ultra, or the Razr Ultra 2025, I believe, for regions outside of the UK. I watched a video last year about the Z Flip 7, and I thought about how cool that phone looked, and how much better it looked over the Z Flip 3 I purchased back in late 2021. I did some looking around on a few mobile phone retailers in the UK for some different prices when something cropped up in my vision. There was a Motorola Razr here. Before I purchased this, I always sort of thought that after the disaster of the original Razr reboot, they just kind of stopped making them and continued focusing on their slab phones, which were still, you know, fairly mid, so I wasn't sure. Out of curiosity though, I did some research into this phone and its specs, and holy shit, this thing was good on paper. 16 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM by default, standard 512GB of storage, 165Hz display, 5000 mAh battery, and the extremely powerful Snapdragon 8 Elite. This thing seemed like a dream. I loved the S25 Ultra because of its power, and this phone came along and seemed to have even better specs than the S25 Ultra, but in that lovely foldable package I really liked. Instantly, I fell in love with the idea of this phone and how amazing it was. It was clear which flip I preferred, but I still did my due diligence in researching the pros and cons of each device. The Motorola had far better hardware on paper. That was a lot of power to be working with in such a small package that could fold in half, but with it being Motorola, the OS and software might not be up to scratch in comparison to Samsung's offering. The Samsung had that beautiful sleek look that I still actually think is better than the Motorola offering. It also had the power and optimization of One UI, which has been tried and tested over the years, and considering I had an S25 Ultra as well, you know, I knew how well it performed in the modern day, and that was a huge bonus for the Flip 7. However, the worse battery, chipset, and lower amounts of memory and storage were a huge negative for me. If I was going to be forking out for a phone of that price, then I wanted everything to be the best it could be. After some internal deliberating, I decided eventually on the Razr 60 Ultra, as you can see here. It was in this horrible, you know, dark green. I'm not a big fan of the color, but it was the best one they had available. It also has this weird, like, velvety back. Like, yeah, I don't like velvet. It makes my skin crawl. Still though, what this phone was offering at a cheaper price, by the way, was just too good to pass up. So I pulled the trigger, and the next day, it arrived. Once again, I had a beautiful foldable device that was actually good in my hands. Those of you that have watched some of my other videos know that I used to own a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 back in 2023 and 2024. Unfortunately, I had to sell it to cover the costs of some new PC parts after my old PC shat the bed, but I did love that phone. You may be wondering why didn't I go with the Z Fold 7 or the Onomagic V5 as I'd be getting a true foldable experience, and that is simply because I just didn't use the Z Fold 5 to its fullest extent. It was cool and novel for a few weeks, but once I realised that I would just rather watch Netflix or play a game on my PC, it lost its main appeal, and I just ended up using it whilst it was closed, which defeated the entire purpose. I love the Z Fold 5, but I just don't think that form factor was for me personally. The flip design, however, really stood out, as I actually had to open it if I wanted to use the phone normally. You know, sure, you could just use the cover screen, but using that alone sucked for long-term use, and I would rather just open it and get the main phone experience. I could have the exact same experience I enjoyed on a slab phone, but with the added dopamine of opening it every single time. That's why I generally prefer the flip experience. Also, I can do this.
Oh mate, you're having a bloody laugh. I'm gonna hang up on you in a really angry fashion.
Beautiful. Just like the good old days. Yeah, I really am an old fucker now. Jesus Christ. This phone did that for me though. I had the power of my S25 Ultra, but in the form factor I really enjoyed. You know, the Fold was too bulky for me, and I knew I would have the same problem with the Fold 7 or another foldable from a different company. After all, they're thinner, like an actual normal slab phone now, and the cover screens are a bit more fitting of the aspect ratio of a regular slab phone, so why on earth would I open it after a couple of weeks? I don't know why I went on this massive tangent, but I think it's because I've seen some people say that, you know, the flip variants of phones are just the Fold but cheaper, so it's for the richer peasants out there, but you know, I actually disagree with that. The new Fold 8 and the Fold 8 Ultra are perfect examples of this. They serve different purposes within this ecosystem, with the Ultra variant being more multitasking focused for people that need that, and the regular one is more sort of consumer grade for people that just like using their phone as a tablet. The Flip is exactly the same. It's just for people that want a folding display, but like the slab phone, basically like me. This phone, however, was amazing. I absolutely adored it out of the box. It was novel, it was powerful, so easy to use, and coming from the Flip 3 to this was a night and day difference, even if Motorola wasn't one of the big boys anymore. The power this thing had out of the box just felt so amazing, and that extra 45Hz on the screen over what I was used to felt so clean. You know, the phone was solid, it felt good in the hands and ran perfectly. The thing I really liked about this was the actual Android installation itself, and it was akin to something like that of a Pixel. It was fairly bare bones, only featuring some manufacturer-specific apps that you didn't actually have to use to get the fullest experience out of your phone. The main annoying thing that got on my nerves first was the inclusion of this little shitty AI button that was forced into it. You know, this is a subjective thing, however, some people may like it. As it had similar power to my S25 Ultra, I wanted to put them up against each other with a bit of a face-off. I installed a fairly graphically intensive game on both phones, that being Warzone Mobile.
Rest in peace, by the way. You were the best COD game on mobile, and that's including the old Zombies game from back in the day. Like, Warzone Mobile was just peak. It was just COD multiplayer, but free and on the go, and it ran really well. Fuck you, Activision.
I booted it up on both phones and did a couple matches on each device, using the Samsung first. It performed absolutely flawlessly on my S25 Ultra, able to achieve a steady 120 FPS on high-ish settings with little to no stuttering or frame drops. A perfectly fine experience. Taking the phone out of the little clamp I had it in that was connected to my controller was, it was fine. It was hot to the touch, but not so hot that I felt that either the phone or my fingers were in immediate danger. It was probably the vapor chamber after all that was giving off all of that heat. The next issue with the Motorola arose about midway through my second match. I was sat there reloading my gun. I remember it was the what the fuck's that sniper called from Black Ops 6? I think it's the first bolt action you unlock. But I was sat there mid reload when all of a sudden all of my frames it just dipped and the input lag just skyrocketed. I thought it was a minor stutter at first, so I just sort of stuck with it for a bit, hoping it would go away, but it never did. The frames on the exact same graphics settings after about 10 to 15 minutes were about 30 to 40-ish. Not overly terrible when compared to some more budget devices, but for a phone with a Snapdragon 8 Elite when you've already been playing in 120 Hz for like a good 10 minutes it was jarring, to say the least. It certainly wasn't what I was looking for. I took this phone out of the little clamp and it was noticeably hotter, almost too hot to the touch. I felt like I couldn't hold it for too long as it was genuinely uncomfortable to do so. That was a pretty major issue I came across, so I let it cool down for about 10 minutes in front of my fan, and then decided to try the test again, thinking it might have been an anomaly. The same thing happened during my second match again on Warzone Mobile. Pretty sure it was actually a little earlier this time, however, but the frames again just completely dipped and left my experience unplayable. Taking the phone out again, and it was just as hot and uncomfortable to hold. I came to the easy to reach conclusion that this bad boy was unfortunately overheating and therefore throttling the Snapdragon 8 Elite's performance to save the phone and prevent any damage. I was definitely a little sad at this revelation, as even though the chipset was basically the same, bar the fact that Samsung had the 8 Elite 4 Galaxy, the performance just wasn't really there after a while. It stuck for a few minutes, sure, but unless you boot up your phone, play one game, and then immediately turn it off every single time you want to do something, then you were bound to run into an issue that forced you to stop playing in order to save the phone. I chalked this up to the fact that Motorola simply didn't have the cooling infrastructure inside the phone to allow for the chip to maintain its higher clock speeds at all times. It was a foldable phone after all, and so I imagine they were limited to what they could do when it came to temps. It got me thinking though, why on earth would they boast such a powerful chip in a form factor that couldn't consistently support it? The 8 Elite, in my experience, is a very hot chipset, and so it seemed rather short-sighted of them to put it in this device. Sure, they probably weren't expecting me to instantly jump into an intensive game, but were probably expecting me to test the AI usability, the system speed overall when it came to opening and loading apps, and other things that really didn't involve me pushing the chipset to its absolute limit. It did occur to me that despite having such a beefy set of specs, it didn't really strike me as a phone for gaming. Being a very prominent gamer who looks at specs, I usually see big numbers and powerful hardware and instantly think how hard I can push it, but that isn't always how it's meant to be used. Maybe this sort of hardware just gives you a bit more breathing room for daily tasks. After all, these phones are regular consumer grade for everyday tasks, not like the ROG phone or Red Magic phones with the specs and cooling to support the phone clocking higher. I then decided to use this phone for everything else, as that 165Hz screen would be perfect for it, and then my S25 Ultra, for heavy gaming. Best decision I ever made. This is where the phone itself really came alive. It felt so smooth and didn't get nearly as hot during extended use sessions. I did some light gaming on it as well as PS2 emulation, which it handled pretty well actually, so I can't actually complain. It was nice being able to play V-Rally 3 and Time Splitters Future Perfect on a foldable device in perfect quality. For those heavier games like Warzone Mobile, COD Mobile, or Destiny Rising, I always used my S25 Ultra though, and that worked for me. Watching YouTube on this thing and then going back upstairs to use it as a clock on my desk while it was half closed felt amazing to do. This was really where the phone excelled, not in intense gaming sessions. It's like buying a Quadro card expecting it to perform the same as a GTX or an RTX card in gaming. It's going to function, sure, but it just isn't going to work as well, but performs incredibly well in its specialized field. The battery life on this thing also slapped hard. Being 5,000 mAh and only using it for daily tasks allowed me to have this thing last pretty much all day with on and off usage. I even felt confident enough running Wallpaper Engine in its best quality on this, as the battery was bigger than other flippable phones. Genuinely, the only thing I didn't like was the lack of support for some apps on the cover screen, and the damn AI button that I would accidentally hit all the time when trying to grip it. So you may be wondering why I'm making this video to begin with, and that is because this is broken, as I said, and so to keep that foldable experience, I had to replace it. If you're wondering how it broke, it wasn't due to regular wear and tear, unless your definition of wear and tear is accidentally dropping it and trying to catch it with your foot, but instead slamming it into a wall. Yeah, just look at that. It's not great. It's not great at all. I mean, it's usable, I guess, but it's also not usable. Yeah, it's in better days. I went a slightly different way this time, however. Despite everything I have said about this phone and how much I love it, I thought it would be kind of pointless me getting another one of these because I might as well just repair this one. The Razr 70 Ultra was also such a nothing upgrade personally, you know, same amount of RAM, storage, and same chipset. You know, the main improvement was to the screen size and build quality, which still looked the same to me, so I didn't really see a point. I also thought that even though I daily drive a Samsung, going with Motorola's OS again won't give me that same new feel that I was going for when I first got this. This time, I did look around, but the number of flips I could find was far less than the folds, so I actually went with the Z Flip 8. I thought that I would try Samsung's offering once again. I enjoyed the jump from the Z Flip 3 to the Fold 5, and yes, while that's a flip to a fold, that was a 2-generation jump, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy the generation jump from the 5 to the 8. Unfortunately, I don't have it yet, but as you can see, it is the 3rd of August today, so it is due to arrive this very day. So I thought I would get this done before it arrives, so I can just sort of easily open it straight away without having to do this entire recording again. I can quickly talk you through my thought process before it arrives though, so let me do that. My thinking was that I wanted a phone that felt new, so I would go with a different brand with a different OS and design. Even if I am used to One UI, I haven't used the Flip optimized version for 5 whole years. Also, the chipset was an interesting choice. As I reside in the shithole region of the United Kingdom, we get shafted with the Flip series a bit as they use Samsung's own Exynos chips instead of the Qualcomm Snapdragon ones. Whilst the Exynos 2600 that is present within the Flip 8 is less powerful than the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite that is in this, I believe it may benefit the overall experience. Again, I'm not going to be using this phone as a high-end gaming device, and so the slightly less powerful chip might actually work a bit better for this. The less power and more efficient architecture, with it being 2nm over the 3nm that the Snapdragon uses, might allow for a lot less heat and battery drain over the Snapdragon chip. I'm definitely coping here, and if I could choose, I would rather have the 8 Elite Gen 5, but as I'm stuck with the Exynos 2600, I'm trying my best to find the positives. Luckily, it isn't 2021 or 2022 anymore, and the Exynos chips have actually come a long way in performance, efficiency, and reliability over the competition. That chip, whilst worse on paper, might actually prove better overall for the form factor of a foldable device. It's just like this has amazing specs in, but it doesn't exactly work the best in every use case, so it might be different, you know, the less might be more in this case. I guess it's one of those things where we'll have to wait and see what the real world use cases are before I can say anything definitive. This is also definitely more subjective, but the design on the Z Flip 8 seems a lot cleaner overall. I know this is a commonly debated topic amongst the community about how Samsung and Apple get complacent with their designs and keep them as basic as possible, but I actually quite like the blockier feel of the foldable phones when compared to the competition like this. Overall, I am very excited to get my hands on it, but I'm still waiting to get it. So, you know, you lovely lot are going to have to wait like 5 seconds, where I'm going to have to wait a few hours, probably. But, yeah, I guess it's time I bid you farewell and do this awful transition so you can see the new phone come in instantly. Just cue the fucking transition, dude.
What the fuck?
It's finally arrived. Yeah, so I thought it was going to arrive on the 3rd, but it didn't. It is now the 5th, and it arrived a good 5 minutes ago. So I mean, it's a little bit later than I'd like, but I mean, it's here. It's here. This part of the video is going to be a lot more unscripted. I've not written a script for this part at all, so we're just winging it for this bit. But we're going to, like, sort of compare these two. And obviously, we're going to unbox this. We're going to unbox this right now. This is a brand new telephonic device that I'm unboxing right now. We got a knife. That's what we're using. Now, at least I can get my finger under there. And oh, I love doing that. And then you might think, oh, why aren't you doing the other one? I don't do the other one. Ooh, that is a very nice, very nice unboxing experience. Usually they come in like the little plastic wrap, but no, this one's not. I mean, first impression straight away. This is a very, very nice phone to hold. Like, the aspect ratio feels a lot more normal than this. I could be wrong. This could just be placebo. It could just be the fact that it's like a different experience to holding it. But it does feel nice in the hands. And I don't know if I'm tripping here, but it feels like it has that anti-reflective coating that like the S25 has, or the S25 Ultra anyway. I'm not sure about the non-Ultra variants, but like it does feel slightly less reflective to the light that I've got going on here. Also, speaking of like light and stuff, yeah, the setup looks different. I got a different mouse. I've removed that horrible fucking mouse pad that's just been fucked because the amount of times I've like dinged it with a screwdriver, and also I've dimmed the lights a bit so it doesn't look as egregious, but hopefully it should look a bit better now. But yeah, this is very lovely. I mean, as you can tell, I got it in the lovely cream colour because I sort of thought white, it contrasts a bit more to the overall device, and I think this is a pretty good example of that. So let's see. Has this got any battery in it? I'm gonna have to charge it. I think I'm gonna have to charge it. I mean, it's recognized as a charger. Obviously, I'd be a bit pissed off if it. Oh my God, 6.7! It's 6.7%! Oh my goodness! Fucking die, dude. Why aren't you just turning on? Just turn on. That's all I want you to do. All I want you to do is turn on. Give me some. Whoa! We got life. We've got life, ladies and gentlemen. Life is present. While that's booting up and doing its thing, you know, let's take a quick look through the box. I'm pretty sure I know what to expect, but might as well have a look. Obviously, I'm going to keep that just in case I want to put the phone back in here, but it looks like there's going to be absolutely nothing under there. But in here is where the interesting stuff happens. So, if I just slide that bad boy out, and that's where all of our stuff is. So yeah, you can see the cable underneath all of these, like instruction manuals and whatnot. So that'll be a nice spare cable I'll use in 10 years time. Got your SIM eject tool, which I'm gonna need at some point. I mean, it's a fairly standard phone unboxing experience. Nothing actually that fantastic. It's a fairly lackluster thing compared to sort of 10 years ago. But I mean, what can you expect from Samsung in the big 26? So I don't know. I mean, the unboxing experiences for both of these is actually fairly bit different, and you know what? Actually, let me go over why. Let me show you why. Once that gets a bit more charge in it, you know, we can do this. So, obviously this isn't going to be a perfect one-to-one opening experience, because this isn't new. But, I mean, you take the box off, well, you take the top off, and this, like, little bit is meant to come out with it. Obviously, you've got the phone underneath here, and then I'm pretty sure underneath this is where the cable resides. As you can see, I've fucked it up a bit, so it doesn't sit as flush. I've just turned the phone. Well, I mean, that's what I wanted to do anyway. But the most interesting thing is actually in this little doohickey right here. Now, let me see if I can actually get this thing out. Yeah, you ready for this? You ready for this? You think it looks normal? No. Brother, this comes with a case. This comes with a fucking case. I mean, I should have probably used it at this one that happened, but it comes with a case. It comes with a case, which for a flip phone, which is fairly already, you know, fragile, is actually a pretty big deal. So I can respect Motorola for that. You know, good job. Okay, so let's just leave these over here. But yeah, you can see how much thicker the Motorola one is, obviously, to compensate for that case. But I actually really, really appreciate that. This is a nice sort of thick box to unbox. I mean, this is a phone box that you unbox, but it just doesn't feel as premium as this personally. Motorola actually wins in this regard. Okay, first initial impressions. I mean, they're fairly similar. They're both foldable phones. I think, judging from this, the Flip 8 is actually a slight bit wider. So it sort of fills that more natural aspect ratio that flip phones, like regular slab phones have. But I mean, I know this is going to go away within like the first week of use. But the crease on this is not noticeable at all. Like, it's a tiny bit noticeable. Not as bad as this, but this is still fine. Like, this is still perfectly serviceable. If I turn the screens off, it might actually look a bit better in the light, so you'll be able to see. Like, yeah, the warping on the light is a lot less noticeable on this as it is on this. Like, you can see there, the light is sort of, it's warping around the crease, but on this side, if we do it on the same sort of side, it doesn't do it. So that is already a massive step up for Samsung. But obviously, this is a foldable phone. They will get more creased the more you flip them and fold them, so that's not exactly a major win. But for a new phone experience, this is definitely better than what this was, so props to Samsung there. Hopefully this sort of means it won't get as bad over time as it did on like older fold and flip variants, but who knows? Obviously I haven't used it yet, so we'll find out. Oh, I've just realised I'm gonna have to learn how to blur out specific parts of a video right now, because I've just showed the IMEI number off like 14 times. Oh my god, dude, just there we go. Fucking look how much I've stained that already. Right, now that this is sort of finally properly unboxed, with no IMEI numbers showing, you know, we can get into this. The only thing I think is a bit more egregious on this than on this is the actual, like, inner hinge itself. You see that sticks out a fair bit, whereas on this, it's sort of just, it's quite flush. It's not perfectly flush, mind you, but when you compare the two, it is, like, definitely noticeable. So it's, I mean, with this, I'll get used to it. It's not going to be a huge issue. Again, I'm just sort of nitpicking here to find like, anything I can sort of get to compare. Okay, I decided I would sort of turn things off, get the actual setups done on both phones to sort of, you know, see how it would function and perform. And honestly, this might come as a bit of a shock, but the setup process was actually better on this, I think. This gave me more options. Like, to start with, it gave me sort of this just gave me light and dark as the theme, to which I chose dark. This gave me light, dark, and balanced, which allowed it to sort of change and transition depending on the time of day. Also, This allowed me to sort of choose swipe gestures straight from the get-go, whereas this forced me to use the buttons and I had to go into the settings to change to swipe gestures, which was a little bit annoying considering I'm used to swipe gestures now and that's what I mainly use, but it's little things like that, but overall, this was the better setup experience. I also did notice that upon looking at it, the Flip 8 is noticeably thinner. Like, not by much, it is probably about 1, maybe 1.5 millimeters, but it's noticeably thinner, which I think for a device like this is going to be a bit important. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but like there is a definite weight difference in... why is Gemini on? I don't want Gemini on. There is a definite weight difference in how the phones feel, with the Flip being way lighter overall, and so I say way lighter. It's noticeably lighter. Again, it might be because it's a bit wider, so your hands having to sort of grip it in a different way. It might be the more surface area in that sense, but this is definitely lighter. And also, I am certain they've done like some screen reflective stuff here. I could be wrong because it does look sort of the same. The light reflections in both screens look pretty similar. But I think there is a bit less reflection in this. Again, I could be wrong. This could just be placebo. Also, the one thing I have noticed, I've turned up, unless it's turned itself down, because... Oh, it has turned itself down. Never mind. Okay, so I turned the brightness up to max on both screens, and straight away, it's probably because this has got like a brighter wallpaper. I'll tell you what, if I go into the settings on both phones, I mean, I think it looks a little quite a bit brighter on the Flip than the Flip 8. What are we talking? Was it trying to use NFC on my desk? Like, there's nothing in there. What are you trying to NFC? But yes, I would say the Flip 8 is a little brighter overall. Like, again, it's going to sort of be negligible when you're out and about. But, I mean, if it's really bright out, which it is during, like, the summer months like it is now, this is probably going to be your better option if you're looking for pure visibility. Okay, I've just had to set up biometrics on both phones in order to sort of use the passwordless sort of verification for Google Play. They were slightly different in setup. This had a more sort of traditional, you place your finger on it and then you lift and then place it slightly differently, whereas this one, it sort of had you place your finger on it and then you rub it around and then it sort of picks up all the different nuances of your finger, which I thought was quite interesting. But this took a little bit longer. I'm not sure if it was because of that. But this did feel a bit more responsive, personally. There was a couple of times in both where it was like, oh, fingerprint not recognized, please just put your fingerprint down. But overall, this, I think, felt a little bit more responsive. Also, another good thing, I've just checked, this doesn't have auto-rotate on by default, which is very, very nice, whereas this was just kind of doing my head in. That's interesting. I don't know if it's because we're still in that period where the phone actually isn't out yet. You know, this is still under the pre-order window, which ends on Friday. I can't actually install benchmarking apps on this, which is interesting. I don't know why they've done that, considering, yes, it's still not available to just purchase outright. You do have to still pre-order it when you can get it before the release date on Friday, but like, it is in the hands of civilians now. You know, I'm using it. I'm not getting special treatment. I wasn't sent this by Samsung. I'm indebted for the next 2 years in order to have this. I mean, as it stands so far, this Exynos chip isn't feeling that sluggish. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. It's a brand new phone. Granted, it isn't a Snapdragon chip, but it's still new. App not installed. Okay, yeah, it's not letting me do it. It's not letting me do it. Okay, the one thing we sort of can try, I'm going to try this sort of volume shader benchmark test. Right, apparently it has an app. I wonder if I can install that. I tell you, I know this comes as a surprise to absolutely no one, but the typing with gloves is just terrible. Ah, see, it's allowed me to have this one. Found up the vividness. It looks a bit more similar, but this, like the red on the run benchmark text, looks a slight bit deeper on this. I don't know if it's like the viewing angle. It looks more like the viewing angle, to be honest. Like it's still, I don't know. It's again, it's negligible. I'm not really gonna notice after a while. But yes, let's try. Yeah, I'm ready to run a real load test. Start. I mean, straight away, Samsung is running a lot better. Like, a lot better. A steady sort of 4 FPS. It is a very steady 4 FPS, whereas this is like a steady 2.9, 2.8, almost 3. But if you notice there, like at the top, just below the actual thing, it says peak 6.3 on the Motorola, whereas on this, it's peak 4.1. So this has been fairly steady. This is a lot more consistent. This, it started apparently at like 6.3 and then instantly dipped, as I imagine, like they're getting quite hot to the touch. I imagine they're quite, what's the word? They're throttling a bit. Yeah, even the Samsung's starting to slow a little bit now. It's sitting at 3.2 FPS, 3 FPS, so it's gone down from the 4 to the 3, so that's 25% performance loss, but 6.3 to 2.9, that's over 50%. Alright, that's over 50%, and is, like, it's not doing... interestingly, though, now that it's been running for a little while, the Samsung is running at about 2.6, 2.5, whereas this was actually higher for a little bit, whereas this is now running at 1.7. So it's... what, 1.5? Oh, why has this stopped? What? I told you to stay on for 10 minutes. What are you doing? Okay, so yeah, again, like this 1.8, 2, so 2 FPS, 2.3. It's clawing back some performance. 2.7, 2.9. It's just climbing. What the fuck? 3.1. Okay, so it's sort of plateaued at, again at about 3. This is still, like, chilling at 2.6. So, again, this is a lot more consistent overall. But this has, like, a higher ceiling. But for a phone, and, like, performance-wise and any sort of task, I'm going to want consistency. Like, it's all well and good to have 165 Hz on this screen. But if it's at 165, then throttles goes instantly to, I don't know, 20. You're going to notice that straight away. Where this, at 120 FPS, yeah, it might dip a little bit, but like it's going to go from like 120 to maybe 90, 80. Yeah, that's going to be noticeable, but that is going to be a hell of a lot better for an experience. And anyway, I would rather take a steady 20 than 160 to 20, because that's just going to be so much worse. So, the main score is 2.0 FPS on this, and 2.5 on this, which is actually interesting. Peak FPS 6.3, whereas on this it was 4.1. Sustained FPS, again, was 2, whereas on this was 2.5. Average on this was 2.3, whereas on this it was 3, which is actually pretty big, all things considered. So again, they're using the same rendering codec, so OpenGL. Refresh rate, so 60, 90, 120. Yeah, same with this, even though I'm pretty sure I set it to 165. FPS dropped, so it dropped 37% from the start to the end, whereas this is, interestingly enough, it dropped 38% from the start to the end, which I thought was quite interesting. Battery temp, as it started, was 33.3, and it ended at 33.3. Same with the battery temp on this, but instead of 33, it was 29, which is interesting. A 4.3 degree difference, which is, I think that's kind of big for temps. You know, if I got a 4.3 degree decrease in temperature on my CPU, I would be very happy with that. But again, yeah, that's interesting. So at least I can sort of actually have... Right, let's try a different one. Yeah, they don't have a sort of unplugged mode, whereas Motorola has like Moto Unplugged, where you just turn off all like the major distractions and whatnot, which I think is quite interesting. Straight up, even with the gloves, I noticed that the Samsung is a lot smoother to the touch, like just a little bit. It feels like the polling rate is ever so slightly higher. But again, that could just be placebo because it's like a new phone and that's what I'm expecting. Oh, Jesus. So 17.3 FPS, 19.6 FPS, roughly. So this is running slightly slower. But this seems to... So this is at a steady 17.3 FPS, peak 17.4. Whereas this, peak 20, 17.9... It's gone between sort of 17.5 at 70 and 19.5 and 20. Whereas this, it's sort of now going from sort of 16.8, 16.7 to 17.8. There's some inconsistency on both devices, but again, I'm not really sure what this is meant to be testing. Is this just testing, like, how far you can push it till it throttles? Interesting. Okay, so this is 17.7 FPS. This is 39. This has gone up. Jesus. Okay. So this actually did a lot better. That did a hell of a lot better. I mean, I've just got off it, but it was like 20-something FPS, whereas this is 17.7, so that's very, very interesting. So this is just a regular stress test, I think, without any sort of fancy bells and whistles. I don't know. This is the first time I've used this app. Again, so we're looking at roughly actually about the same. So 2.7, 2.6 that this was, it's now gone to 2.1. The 2.7, 2.5, so again, for fuck's sake, Aiden. Okay, interesting. So I just ran it again because I accidentally skipped on this one, and this now gets higher. 2.6 FPS over the 2.3 here. So peak FPS was actually 5.4 on this, whereas it was 3.7 on this. My guess is this was a bit more heated up before it ran the second one, and so throttled a little bit. Which again sort of makes this a bit more consistent, which is what this sort of lines up with my theory that I had earlier in this video, basically saying that the less powerful chip is less powerful, but overall you might actually get a more consistent and solid experience. It might not be as good, it might not be like have the higher ceiling for performance, but consistency is key. I know on my computer I've recently, I don't know why it's only taken me a year, but I've recently got into, like, using G-Sync. You know, I never really knew how to set it up, and I thought, fuck it, you know, I'm just going to properly learn how to do it. Best decision I've ever made. Best decision I've ever made. And the reason being is because, yeah, it's all well and good if a game gets, like, 150 odd FPS, but it just runs like absolute arse. Like, there's stutters all over the place. But now, my games get to, I don't know, say, 90 on like a more intensive title, but G-Sync sort of keeps that steady, and it feels way better. That like loss of 60 FPS over 150, noticeable, sure, but way better to play with. Way better to play with, and this is sort of following that same philosophy, really. Like, it's way more consistent. Again, the battery temps were actually hotter on this, but yeah, it's not too bad. But yeah, I mean, that's actually, it's very, very interesting that, like, again, on paper, this has the far better specs, but this just seems to be better in practice because, again, it's a flip phone. Like, it's a flippable phone. Yeah, this is definitely very hot to the touch, Jesus Christ. But, I mean, with, like, a proper fold, you have basically two of these together. You have two slab phones together. You can put a hell of a lot more in the side with the actual chip in, whereas the other side is mainly just for like battery and whatnot. So you can do a lot more with like cooling infrastructure, like a vapor chamber for whatnot, but this is a hell of a lot smaller. You've basically halved that space. You can't really put in major cooling infrastructure in these like you would see in a regular slab phone or a foldable, like a proper folding phone. So it's actually quite impressive that Samsung has nailed the consistency on this, but again, like I said earlier in the video, I think, I can't even remember if I didn't, I'm going to say it now, but If I had the choice, I would still take the 8 Elite Gen 5 any day, but as it stands, the Exynos 2600, not bad. Not bad. One thing I am going to do is just install a game. You know, install a game. I'm just going to install Minecraft on both phones. And I mean, it's Minecraft. It's going to run, but I just sort of want to see what level we can get it to run at, you know? Minecraft 2 is the top search. Jesus Christ. COD Mobile might also not be a bad shout. I'll install that as well. But I mean, while these install, again, as I say, on paper, this has far better specs. Not even just the chipset. Like, standard, this comes with 16 gigs of RAM. This only comes with 12, unless you get the, like, 1TB model, I think, that has 16. I could be wrong, unless that's just reserved for the slab phones and the folds. But, again, this has an extra 4 gigs of RAM out of the box, which is pretty good. This also has double the storage out of the box, which is really, really good. And so, I can really see the appeal of, like, a non-Samsung device here. It actually, I still love this. Even though it's broken, I might end up just using this as, like, a little desk thing where I have the time going. Also, I don't actually know if this phone has one. I don't think it will. But, oh, Christ, I didn't even notice. The bezel on the outer screen is way, way better on the Flip 8 than it is on this. Way, way, way better. Right, there's one thing I want to do. I want to see if Samsung included, like, a little fun game for this. No, it doesn't look like they did. Motorola actually did a really cool thing with this. They added it's one thing I actually quite like Motorola for. Like, especially back in the day, you used to get little games or little apps on your phone that you could use to sort of test features and whatnot. And this did it. This phone did it. So this little game called Marble Mayhem uses the accelerometer and stuff in this phone to sort of adjust where the position is, and it's such a cool little concept. This comes pre-installed, by the way. So before you've installed anything, if you're out and about, don't have any internet connection, and you just want to boot up the phone and see what it's like, you can play this. I remember when I first got this phone. When I first got this, I spent, I shit you not, like an hour and a half just playing this. It was so fun. It felt so novel, and it just sort of made this phone that felt so new feel so classic at the same time, and that's exactly what I wanted. You know, I can't even describe it. It's a new phone with old heritage, and you can really feel that. Whereas this, don't get me wrong, it's bloody brilliant, but this is definitely more of a modern take on it. Like, this is such a modern feeling device, whereas this has a sort of more classic-y feel to it. It's like if they tried this technology back in sort of 2013, 2014. That's what this phone feels like, and that's what I like. Not in a sort of performance way where it feels really slow. No, it feels really, really quick, but it's just sort of, it feels retro in a sense. I don't know, it's hard to describe. I might be alone on that. I could be alone on that. I probably am, but that's what it feels like. Also, the opening experience on both phones, this is better. Interesting. This actually installed COD Mobile before this. Interesting. We might actually be able to, like, really see the colors now. Also interesting. I mean, this has started, like, I know there were still some pop-ups, but this has started downloading quite a bit quicker. They both use Wi-Fi 7, so I don't think it's my internet connection. But that is very, very interesting. Jesus Christ, it is so hot in this room right now. Not to mention I've got like 3 lights on me. Interesting. Okay. We'll just keep the non-HD. You know, we'll go with that. But like so far, yeah, this is definitely brighter. I think this is definitely brighter. Like this area over here where the logo is in the top left looks way brighter than it does on this sort of side. Yeah, that's what I like about OLEDs. It sort of really makes the whites shine. Not like that. Not like, please don't clip that out of context. That does not sound good. But it really makes the sort of brighter colours or brighter shades shine. There we go. That's what I wanted. Now, I haven't used this in a while, but considering I don't really want to hold these phones and play with these gloves, I'm going to need a third-party controller. And you know what I could have just done? You know what I could have just done to make my life really easy? I didn't even need to get this backbone controller. I could have just done this. This way I can test the Bluetooth connectivity, which will be nice. So, put it in Bluetooth mode. We'll do... this. We'll do this first. One thing I do like, if you didn't know, you can actually use the touchpad on the DualSense. Or, I'm pretty sure the same with the DualShock 4. You can use it as like a mouse, which I think's quite interesting. It makes using the phone really fun. Okay, right, because typing on these gloves is horrible, my username is now gceltio08p2. So, that's what we've got to work with. Okay, I mean, so far it's not bad. Like, it's okay. I say that as if it's not actually amazing. It runs perfectly. It runs absolutely fine. As I said earlier in the video, I used to test Warzone Mobile for stuff like this, as it was a bit more intensive and also a better COD experience personally, but unfortunately, Activision were like, yeah, we don't want people playing this anymore, so get fucked, and it's now gone. You can never play it again, which is really sad because it was the best COD experience on mobile. I really hope Delta Force has controller support, because if so, I might install that and use that as my new benchmark. Well, that was easy. Is it only 20 kills? Is that how they're expecting these matches to go? Yeah, gceltio, we were the MVP. God, it feels so weird without, like, all of my actual guns, you know, like the Kar98. What the... What? That's gonna look like I'm hacking! Well, that was entertaining. I mean, yeah, it was like a fairly solid experience. Okay, now let's test the, This is really gonna be interesting, isn't it? I mean, straight away, I don't know if this will come through on the recording, but the volume quality, like the audio quality, far better on this. Far better on this than the speakers. So much better. Okay, right. This could be a bit of a hot take here. Why does everyone like Ghost? I just don't understand. He was in like 5 minutes of the original Modern Warfare 2 and then he was killed. Yeah, it was like a good plot point, but what did he do? What did he do outside of Aura Farm? Dude, oh my god, this is what I fucking hate about mobile games. It's just, yeah, let's just force you to play like a billion fucking things. Force you to touch a billion fucking things. Yeah, the audio quality is so much worse. But, I mean, I can't see jack from this viewing angle. I can't see diddly dick squat. It's even worse considering there's a massive blotch and line on the screen that is just quite distracting. Oh my god, I actually got killed. I'm going to blame that on the fact that the phone screen looks like this. God, man. It is so easy with aim assist, isn't it? Like, as someone that plays primarily on PC nowadays, you just don't get aim assist anymore. Which, I mean, is fine. It's not what I wanted. Don't want aim assist, because who the fuck does? But, well, people that play on a controller probably do. I'm going to say, if I was playing this without aim assist right now, I would be having a worse time. Very, very bad time. I mean, I would say I would test touch controls, but as far as it stands, like, it's going to be pretty much the exact same experience. Ergonomics-wise, touch controls-wise, like, the screen, they're basically just as responsive. I know I said, like, the polling rate on that felt a bit higher, but, I mean, when you're gaming, it's going to not be noticeable after just a matter of minutes. But, I mean, honestly, for gaming, I'm having a fun time right now. I'm having a good time. We got good graphics. We've got good performance. You know, it is running perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. This is, I would say, more than serviceable. This is good. This is a good experience. Considering, obviously, like I say, the Flip 8 doesn't have a Snapdragon chip. It might be a bit more consistent performance-wise and temps-wise, but this does have the Snapdragon 8 Elite. So, like the previous one, unless I believe... Is there a Gen 5 and a Gen 5 Elite, or is it just the Gen 5 Elite? I don't know. Part of me thinks it is, like, there is a Gen 5 and there is also a Gen 5 Elite. I don't know. Hey, look, I got MVP again. Perks of playing on a fucking controller. It's just like playing Call of Duty on a PlayStation, but far worse. Okay, so again, we're going to try Minecraft. It's an easy-to-run game. This used to run... Granted, obviously, it's had a lot more updates since it used to run on my Kindle Fire, but it used to run on my Kindle Fire 13 years ago, so it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. We'll just do a test, though. Actually, we'll see if we can crank up the graphic settings and see how well it handles it. I was gonna do that in COD Mobile, but I couldn't be arsed. Especially with how not friendly the UI is on that. Okay, a few stutters, but that's probably just the game sort of loading in, compiling shaders and stuff. Like, it is definitely struggling a bit more now. Like, the input lag is not great, but I mean, as it stands, this is Minecraft, and it looks fantastic. Only downside is obviously, now that I'm pushing the chip a bit more, you might notice performance actually start to degrade even more with extended play sessions. Because it's obviously trying to... Oh god, I think it's crashed. Nope. It just took an awful long time to load. Oh, holy sensitivity. Oh god, yeah, the performance has really gone downhill now. No, it's just my controller. It's fine now. Feels like a pirate ship. I'm trying to steer the Titanic. See, there we go. We've built a house. It's not a good house, mind you, but it's a house. And I could do that at like 25 FPS on this phone. So, again, perfectly playable. It is serviceable for what you need. Now, this should actually be quite an interesting test because, well, it's going to be the exact same game, but on inferior hardware. Again, the audio quality straight away vastly improved. It actually sounds like it's audio, not just tinny. So if you're looking for audio quality out of the speakers, this is probably not going to be the best bet for you. Oh my god. Okay, the exact same setting. Yeah, I'm noticing some frame drops, but it's probably... This is like a solid sort of between 30 to 40 FPS, I want to say. Yeah, there are some stutters here. But I don't think I would play at these settings. I would definitely turn the settings down to have like a more stable experience. But, I mean, as far as performance goes, this is better than the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Like, I mean, if you were to put a different Snapdragon 8 Elite in, like, say, the one that's in the S25 Ultra that's recording this video, chances are that would perform far better under the same graphic settings as both this and this, but oh my god, the Samsung Exynos 2600 is actually outperforming the Snapdragon 8 Elite in this scenario. I feel like it's a little bit more stuttery, so what I'm going to do is, because I know I did sort of say, and I do still agree with this, that I prefer a more stable, lower FPS experience. So I'll turn on frame pacing. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's capped the FPS a bit more. But it is like a more, I don't want to say stable. Okay, so interesting. Okay, yeah, the performance is starting to degrade a bit more now that the phone's heating up. But again, so let me just test quickly. I mean, this is going to be exactly the same for the Motorola as well, but we'll test it. So we'll go with custom frame rate limit. We'll set that to 60, high, medium, resolution. We'll do 66%, and then render distance down to 8. Frame pacing, we'll turn that off. And would you look at that? It's still not perfect, but it's a damn sight better than it was. But yeah, I mean, it's Minecraft. It's gonna run. even if you like have it at high settings, it's proven it's not going to be like the best experience, mind you, at high settings, but at lower settings, this game will run. And if it's going to be anything like the Motorola, then emulation on this is going to be absolutely fine. Like, I'm going to install some PS2 emulators on this with a couple of PS2 games like Ratchet & Clank, Metal Gear Solid 2, things like that, and it will probably run fine. It'll even be interesting to see how Game Native runs, so I'll be able to use like my PC library on the go and play like Vampire Survivors, even though it does have a mobile port, Megabonk, Left 4 Dead, you know, like some older, very well optimized games that are more sort of CPU bound than GPU bound. That'll be interesting. So, yeah, I'm actually quite excited to see what this gives me. But as it stands, this is a solid experience. You know, it's Minecraft. It's going to work. I mean, yeah, I've also just noticed that once it's folded, you can definitely tell the sort of thinness and or the thickness difference. Like, that is noticeably thicker. I mean, again, it's absolutely fine. Like, this is perfectly serviceable, and I wouldn't mind, but this is still thinner. This is very hot now as well. Very, very hot. But yes, as it stands, these phones are practically the same functionality-wise. Like, you're going to have the same sort of experience. Some might be better in, or one might be better in some areas, and the other might be better in other areas. But for the most part, it is going to be like a negligible difference. You're not going to really notice unless you're sort of uber autistic and into sort of specs and minor differences like myself. But for your average sort of browsing experience, both of these are going to be fine. So what would I actually recommend out of the two? Now, I mean, personally, it depends on what your main preference is. If your main preference is pure performance, no matter the stability, this is probably your best bet. If you like a more stable performance at a lower sort of TDP, with slightly worse battery, slightly better battery usage, maybe this will be better for you. But then again, this does have a bigger battery, so maybe that will be better. But I do believe this is using silicon carbon. I don't know if these have silicon carbon batteries yet, or this has a silicon carbon battery. Maybe the Razr 70 Ultra does, but I'm pretty sure the latest generation folds and flips do have silicon carbon batteries in. I could be very wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the case, which means that your battery health should be a bit better, like the stability, the battery life should be a tiny bit better, even with the slightly lower capacity that this has. I mean, it's interesting. What can I say? It's interesting. I don't really know what I would recommend overall. The cameras are going to be pretty much exactly the same. I would test the camera quality out, but I'm sorry, at the moment I actually feel really sick, and I think it's just too hot in this room. So I would do that, but I'm not going. I might actually, you know, put a picture up here of both phones taking a picture of the same thing, just to sort of see the detail. I would do video quality, but again, it's going to be sort of negligible, personally. But again, it all comes down to sort of what your preference is. Do you prefer One UI and the sleeker looking sort of actual design, or are you more of a I don't mind what the software is as long as it's the actual best hardware possible, and, you know, you don't mind a slightly worse build quality, stranger, more unique looking colors, like, and a thicker frame, then maybe this is for you. Maybe get the Razr 60. Bear in mind as well, this is last year's offering, and this is this year's offering. So this is the very latest that's not even really out yet unless you pre-order it. This has been out for about, like, over a year at this point, so this is definitely going to be, well, I don't want to say, but the fact that it's been a year and it's still trading blows is pretty good. So maybe, even though the 70 Ultra uses the exact same chipset as this, maybe they've optimized it a bit more, maybe they've got some more improvements under the hood in the build quality to adjust for, or to allow for better temps, then maybe you will have a better experience overall with the 70 Ultra or the 60 Ultra, should you be able to get one for cheap. But honestly, yeah, I think overall I do prefer this, and that's not just me coming from a, ooh, this is new and shiny, look at this. Like, yeah, this is new and shiny, and look at it, but I prefer the stability this has, I prefer the build quality, I like how thin it is, I like One UI, it's very, very easy to use. Even though the setup process for this was a lot easier, now that I'm sort of into this and I know what One UI gives me over whatever Motorola calls their OS, is it Moto OS, is it just that simple? But, like, I prefer the stability that this is going to give me for years to come. And also, that cover screen, beautiful, beautiful. It's going to be way better just sat on my desk like that. I'm going to be able to see things easier. I mean, actually, let me just check quickly. Yeah, again, like, I feel like it's a little the same, but I feel like this has a slightly better, like, anti-reflective quality. So that could just be placebo, but I think this is the better option. You know, the speakers are better. You know, I'm going to be able to easily use my headphones on this. So with my current headphone setup, what I do is I have a pair of Sennheiser Momentum 5s. You know, they're pretty good, and I could just connect them via Bluetooth, which I did to start with, and they were fine. But what I do is I actually use the little, is it the BTD 700? And you just connect that. And look how small that package is. That's lossless audio, wireless lossless audio in a tiny package. Beautiful. And yet, you could do the same with this and get the exact same thing as well. And, I mean, maybe that's what you will do. But, I mean, if I'm just looking to watch TikToks downstairs when there's nobody in and I can't be asked to grab my headphones, this is going to be the phone I want. This is going to be the phone I want. But yeah, honestly, they are practically the same sort of thing. I think this is a lot smoother. I like this sort of feel, whereas this is a bit velvety, and I don't like velvet. I like the blockier feel of the flips. I like the way this feels in my hand. I like the way it looks. It's very, very sleek and feels a lot more premium to me than the Motorola's offering does. But, again, this is still a very, very good phone. I'm not shitting on this. This is just a comparison. I love both of these, and should this still... I mean, if this still functioned, one, I wouldn't have got this at all. And, I mean, two, I would still use this should I have got this anyway. So, I love both of these. It's honestly... My advice for things like this is always just go and do your own research. Find what your preferences are. Think about what you've got your current phone for. What do you use it for? Do you use it for gaming? Do you use it for general browsing or social media, drawing, doing like jigsaw puzzles or media consumption? Or do you just like having something that sits on your desk and you can use as like a clock that you don't want to use because it's not like open, so you don't do anything with it? Like, you might not even like a flip phone. You might just want to go for like a regular slab phone. But honestly, my take from this is that get what you feel would be right for you. There is no definitive get one over the other answer. Just look at your preferences, look at the hardware, look at the comparisons, because now that this is starting to sort of make its way into circulation, and especially Friday, once it really reaches its actual release date, there will be a lot more benchmarks against older tech like this. So just look at your preferences, look at what they're better at. I've done what I can do here with my limited experience and knowledge, but just find what suits you and go from there. I can guarantee that they will sort of fill the same sort of gap, but will overlap in different areas. So, what I say overlap, will sort of differ in some other areas. So, just find what suits you. Even if it's just the sort of, what OS would I prefer? That's your option. And even if it's, like, you don't have to get the Flip 8 at that point. If you prefer one, you want to get the Flip 7 or the Flip 7 FE. You know, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. I just like this. I also like this, but I prefer this. And, I like I said earlier in the video, I'm not going to use, just like this, I'm not going to use any of these for heavy gaming. I have my S25 Ultra for that. I have my PC for that. I have my PlayStation for that. But for light PS2 emulation or COD Mobile, Minecraft, you know, light things like that, this is going to be fine. And that's just what I wanted it for. You know, I like the idea of a slab phone that I can unfold and have like that. This is just a slab that folds, and that's exactly what I want out of a flip phone. And this does it perfectly. But yes, if that is sort of what you're looking for, then have a look. But if not, you know, just again, it all boils down to cater for your preferences. Cater for your own preferences, otherwise you're going to be stuck with a device you don't like. And nobody wants that. But yes, this has been a very interesting video. I've enjoyed this, to be honest. I've thoroughly enjoyed going through these, sort of finding out how they both perform against each other in the same sort of tasks. I would have done like social media browsing and things like that, but that's going to be fine on any phone. That's going to run perfectly normally. we've done audio tests. Look, I say audio tests, like I've done speaker tests, so this sounds better than this, just in general everyday use. Some light benchmarking tests, considering I can't run like Steel Nomad on this yet, but it has been fun. I have very much enjoyed this, so if you have also enjoyed this, then be sure to, I don't know, subscribe, like, leave a comment, do anything, tell me I'm a fat bastard, do whatever you want, I literally don't care. And I suppose with that, it's time to wrap this video up. Thank you so much for watching this video if you have made it to this point. You know, I thoroughly enjoy making these videos, and I know I haven't made one of these videos for an incredibly long time, but there has been a lot going on in my life recently, some good, some not so good. You know, life has been coming at me fast, as the cool kids say, so yeah, it's been interesting, and well, I think I used to try and get a video out once every 3 months, which does sound like a long time, I know, but that was 4 or so videos a year. This is like the first video this year, and it's August at this point, so it's very, very late. But, you know, I'm sorry. I can't, like, force myself to make videos, because if I do, that will compromise the quality of them and, like, my energy in them, and I just don't want to do that and sacrifice it. I would rather put out 1, maybe 2 videos a year and have them be good and things that I actually want to do and things that I like looking at, instead of forcing myself to do 4 or more on things that I don't like. So it could be to a point where I do like 10 a year because I found 10 things I really want to make videos on, but it will just be whenever my mind deems it possible, or I say possible, deems it that I want to do a video, and unfortunately that is a rare thing now. So I've not abandoned this channel. I still use this channel. I will continue to upload on this channel whenever I sort of feel like it, but unfortunately, that is the way it's going to be. I'm not really sticking to a strict schedule. I'm not really sort of going, oh god, I've got like a month to upload this, or a month to do this, I need to get this, and this done, because that will just compromise how I feel about it, and then just push me even further away. So I just want to do things when I feel like I want to do them, because that will give me the best sort of quality that I can give. So, yes. Again, I am sorry if you've been, like, looking forward to a new upload for months and you've not really got one. But yes, hopefully this should tide you over till probably this time next year. But yes, hopefully you guys went on to enjoy this video, and if you did, do be sure to tell me what you enjoyed about this video, if you are planning on getting a device similar to this and sort of found this comparison useful. You know, what you should take away from this is that just because it's Samsung and they're one of the big boys, doesn't mean that a third-party offering isn't going to be just as good, if not better, in some scenarios. So look around. Don't just go Samsung because you think, ooh, Samsung. Have a look at Motorola. Have a look at, like, Honor, Oppo, other companies, even Nothing that I've talked about on this channel. They still make good phones. You know, have a look around. Just because it's Samsung doesn't mean it's the best. You know, have a look around. Use your preferences to your advantage. Find out what you like, whether it's the gimmick, the software, the performance, anything. Just look around and find what suits you. That is the best thing you can do for any device like this. But yes, with that, I suppose it is time to end this video. So again, thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you have, I very much appreciate you. And yeah, I guess I'll see you all in the next one, whenever that one will be. So yeah. I'll see you later, guys. Bye-bye.